Our positional aim at the start of a game of chess is to gain control of the center. The side who is first to put two pawns in the center, said Purdy, has a leg up. I think one reason Purdy didn't get enough credit in the United States for being the greatest chess teacher is that Americans didn't always understand what the Australian was saying. Leg up means advantage. Bridge games are often played 2 legs out of 3, so leg up is a 1-0 advantage. At wrestling, if you get his leg up, your opponent is easier to topple over, so you have an advantage. At chess, the first side with 2 pawns in the center has a leg up. In king pawn games, white may always gain a slight advantage by putting the second pawn up with 2d4, but it is a slight advantage. In queen pawn games, white cannot so easily play 2e4 because the e4 pawn isn't guarded. So white's ancient and good move is the queen's gambit move c4, and if black is deflected from the center, white gets a leg up. Or if black plays to maintain his pawn in the center with c6 or e6, then white's further advanced pawns in the center give him a little more breathing room, and that is a slight advantage in itself. A common middle game plan for white is to play c takes d5 later, then press down on the e file with heavy pieces. At move 1, black can contest center control in a different way. Knight f6 hits d5 and e4 with a piece move. Then if 2 knights e3, intending e4, 2d5 gives black a solid grip on e4. So again, 2c4 is the usual move, anticipating d5. 2e6 takes a small step toward the center. Maybe black has 3d5 in mind. 3 knights e3 prepares to build a big pawn center with e4. 3d5 returns to the classical queen's gambit, but Nimzovich's move, bishop b4, is a very good one. By pinning the white knight that hits e4, black increases his control over e4. Black has also developed economically and can castle next. The Nimzo Indian is such a good opening for black that many white players opt for 3 knight f3 to avoid the bishop b4 pin. White has 12 reasonable moves at move 4. Some think that richness gives the Nimzo Indian some charm. Capablanca's move 4 queen c2 has been tested over time to be one of the very best. It's most logical. White's queen aims at the critical e4 square, and in case black plays bishop c3, white can recapture with the queen and avoid spoiling his pawn structure. One drawback to 4 queen c2 is that white's d4 pawn is unguarded temporarily, so c5 attacks the d4 pawn, as would Milner-Berry's move knight c6. But when white captures on c5, black might lose a move with his bishop to recapture. Also, the capture on c5 exposes the d7 pawn to be backward on the d file. Bishop g5 was a standard move in this position, but Capablanca simply chose the bishop move, which gave his bishop the most freedom of motion. Now, white is wasting no time developing his kingside. Black does better to castle here on this move or the next move. Queen a5 is an early queen move that's a little harder to accept than white's early queen move, queen c2. When the bishop goes back to b4, now black is clearly wasting time. White continues his development. Rook a b1 is a clever move, increasing the rook scope greatly while inhibiting black's bishop development. If black were to play bishop d7 in this position, it would simply drop the b pawn. Black should probably play a6 now to prevent rook b5. But instead, black misplaces his queen. After queen a3, Capablanca's slightly unusual bishop development, bishop f4, looks like magic because the queen and the rook are on the same diagonal, which invites a bishop fork on d6 in many positions later. White has developed most economically. Every white piece has moved one time. And with better development, white starts opening the game for his better developed pieces. If black plays ed now, then c4 threatens cd with a discovered attack on c6. And of course, if black plays dc, bishop d6 forks. So black felt compelled to play knight d5 in that position. And knight g5 with a checkmating threat on h7 gives white the time to centralize his bishop. That's a strong diagonal for the bishop. White is simply threatening to win a pawn on d5. With c4, white is not threatening to capture on d5 immediately because the c4 pawn is pinned. But white is threatening rook b5 to drive the queen away from the pinning square, after which the knight will be lost. In case of EF, then 20AB pushes the queen away from the defense of the c6 knight. But after knight a6, bishop c6 forced black to resign, because if black plays queen c6, our favorite smothered mate pattern appears after the discovered check, and king h8, and we know what to do now. Black will simply lose rook for knight on rook f7, and after king g8, the double check, the smothering, and the checkmate. Coming next in our Scobar chess series, more checkmating patterns you must know, illustrated by Capablanca games.